Welcome back to the Iranian Viva channel. Today's video is a missions guide for the Pitt expedition. I'll be covering how to complete both missions and the optional objectives that will guarantee you get higher rewards. Being unprepared for particular stages can be the difference between completing and failing objectives, so this guide will prepare you so that doesn't happen. Let's get started. Today's video is my second Pitt guide, with the first explaining how to start the questline, so I recommend checking that out first if you're unsure how to get started. Special thanks to Cat Duchess Flame, who sourced a lot of the information for this video, and if you want a more comprehensive guide for both missions, then check out the links to her web articles in the video description. Thanks as well to Coffee888 and for allowing me to use some of his missions footage. First up today, let's go through the basics of how the expedition missions work and how you can get better rewards. Once you have 100% Ultra Cell battery, you're ready to start an expedition and will have a choice between starting Mission 1, Union Dues, and Mission 2, From Ashes to Fire. Although both missions are very different, they do share the same format, which I'm going to break down. There are two missions. These two missions are both made up of 3 parts. These parts are lengthy objectives that you need to complete to progress, and are essentially the main mission. However, for each part, you will have one of 3 possible objectives. I'm showing this format on screen using Mission 1, but this means that each time you do an expedition, you are likely to have a completely different experience. Completing these 3 main parts will guarantee that you receive the basic Tier 0 reward. So how do you get a higher tier? Well, each mission also has 3 additional objectives. For both missions, these objectives will always be the same. You can successfully finish an expedition mission without completing these. They are technically optional, but each of these that you complete will grant you 1 additional reward tier, and the rare plans and best rewards are only available at Tier 3. So, if you're after Tier 3, then these additional objectives are as important to complete. They're also very easy to fail. So before we get to that though, let's take a closer look at Mission 1, Union Dues. This mission is based in the industrial districts of the Pitt, and your NPC contact is Hex. Before starting the mission, take a look at this checklist of recommended perk cards and items to bring with you. These will help you with the different stages. Fire in the hole at rank 1, a jetpack if you have one available, lockpicking cards, and friendly fire. This last one is highly recommended as it relates to one of the optional objectives that is easy to fail. Part 1 will either be Assassination, Repel enemies, or Defend NPC. For the assassination task, Hex will ask you to kill 3 fanatic manhunters who are pursuing her. These enemies wear all black under armour with a covert scout set and raider gas mask. They will stand out in groups of fanatic enemies. You won't have direct map markers for these enemies, just an area search location, which will change to inside objective area when you're close enough. For repel enemies, Hex will instead send you to the nearby depot to place a Union transmitter. The area search is the same as before, and once you've placed the transmitter, you'll need to kill enemies until it's finished uploading. Finally, for the Defend NPC, Hex directs you to meet a Union saboteur near the shipping yard. Follow the map marker to beat him, and after giving him the password Sea Lion, protect him against fanatics in 4 different locations. Part 2 will either be Free Prisoners, Proximity Tracker, or Solve Locks. Start by speaking to Hex in her room at the pen. She will assign one of the 3 tasks, but will also introduce you to Wicker. He's going to give you the 3 optional objectives that you need to complete too for a higher reward tier. Back to the main mission though. Free Prisoners sees you hunting down a fanatic warden to free some prisoners in the foundry. Proximity Tracker is also in the foundry, but instead you're looking for 2 dead drops. These are essentially reskinned nuclear winter briefcases that beep when you get close. For Solve Locks, you need to find 3 locked safes. An area search marker will show the rough area, and you're looking for safes which look like this, which is essentially the commonest safe from the atomic shop. Part 3 will either be Gather and Deposit, Carry and Throw, or Object Destruction. All of these will lead to a mini boss fight back at the pen. I will cover this at the end, as this includes the optional objective of protecting Union fighters. Gather and Deposit sends you to the Chem Lab to collect 6 of each of these items. They're very easy to spot. Once you've found them all, add them to the weapon stockpiles. Then do the same with sealing agents and add them to the distribution stations. Finally, hunt down some fanatic chemists to collect unstable mixture to add to the testing vats. Head to the pen when you're done. Carry and throw is where the fire and the hole perk will come in handy. You will need to find a coolant stockpile in a freezer. You equip these one by one and throw them like grenades into the vats. Once you've done it 5 times, head to the pen. For object destruction, Hex sends you to blow up 5 poisoned gas tanks in 2 different sections of the foundry. Shooting the tanks actually destroys them. The 3 parts are pretty much done, so now it's time to discuss the optional objectives and the end boss. The first objective is to find 5 steel ingots. These can be found throughout the industrial area and foundry. A max of 5 will spawn, but these can be in 30 possible locations. We are working on a separate guide of every single location, but these will register with a direct map marker when you're within 15 feet of them. Next, you also need to loot a Union supply crate. Visually, it looks like a large nuclear winter supply crate, and will begin to beep when you get close. We will also be covering all the possible spawn locations for this in a separate video. The end boss and final optional objective. Once you head back to the pen after part 3, you will immediately trigger a battle with the Trogs. 3 Union fighters will help you, and if you manage to keep them alive, then you will successfully complete that objective. The battle ends when you kill the Trog Devourer. Remember, friendly fire can be used to heal up your allies. If you finish the end battle and are still missing the ingots, or haven't found the crate, you can head back to do that. Once you are happy, speak to Wicker. You will need to hand in those optional rewards you collected. Then speak to Hex, and then Lennox, and then home in the Vertibird. You will see the reward screen on the way back. Up next, Mission 2. This mission is based in the Trench region of the Pitt, and your NPC contact is Danilo. Before starting the mission, take a look at this checklist of recommended perk cards and items to bring with you. These will help you with the different stages. Heavy duty rad protection is a must. The final stage of this mission has severe rads that can kill you in 30 seconds, so power armor, a hazmat suit or Chinese stealth armor is your best friend. Poison resistance is also great, as this will lessen the Trog's effectiveness, so the legendary perk card Funky Duds in particular is great for this. Lockpicking and hacking cards. Friendly fire perk card. Even more than mission 1 bring this one along. Again, it's tied to one of the 3 additional objectives, and it could save some very squishy NPCs. Part 1 will either be Gather and Deposit, Object Destruction, or Proximity Tracker. For Gather and Deposit, Danilo will ask you to collect 8 trench meds and 5 trench masks and deposit them into a drop box. Masks drop from Fanatic Scout enemies. Try killing everything and then area loot to pick them all up in one go. Trench meds are in yellow loot boxes. These look similar to the nuclear winter crates. Once these have all been found, follow the map marker to the drop box. Object Destruction has Danilo task you with destroying 8 hazardous blockages in Jackson's Noose. These blockages can spawn in different locations, but the area search marker will direct you. For Proximity Tracker, Danilo needs you to neutralise 3 hazards in the trench. Look at the hazard strength bar to gauge how close you are, but this is what you're looking for. 1 to 7 blue plastic barrels on top of green goo. Interacting with them neutralises it. Part 2 will either be free prisoners, carry and throw, or assassination. For part 2 it always starts the same way, with speaking to Danilo at the outpost, and then travelling to meet Ava Rose. She gives you the 3 additional objectives like Wicker did in the first mission. More on those later, but initially these are collecting prisoner collars and speaking to the Fanatic Skeptic. The free prisoners task will have Danilo send you to the sewers to find a Fanatic Warden. The location changes each time, but just follow the direct map marker. Kill the Warden to loot their keys, and then liberate the labourers from their cells. Danilo sends you to the Cathedral for part 3 after this. Carry and Throw sends you into the Sanctum. The goal here is to find Troglodyte, so you can throw it into their nest. It takes over the grenade slot, and you can throw it like a grenade. You will need to be close by to get it in the nest, but repeat this process until you've done all 3. Assassination is the third option. Head into the Sanctum, where you need to find 3 Fanatic Harrowers. Area search markers direct you. Eliminate them one at a time, and once the last one is dead, then it's off to the cathedral. Part 3 will either be solve locks, repel enemies, or defend NPC. This section always ends the same way, fighting a fanatic foreman at the end and escaping the sanctum. For the solve locks task, initially you need to find 3 terminals which are level 0. Run a program to destroy them. Repel enemies is the second alternative part 3. You need to create a distraction while labourers escape. Find the organ to create a distraction which triggers the waves of enemies. Remain within the circle until the bar is full. And the final option for part 3 is defend NPC. You're defending Danilo himself, as he's actually decided to help us. He will travel to 4 locations. Now, the end game and those 3 important additional objectives. The first optional objective is collecting prisoner collars. These can be found on fallen prisoners in the sanctum, cathedral, catacombs, and sometimes even the trench. Persuading the fanatic skeptic is the second. Only the team leader can interact with the skeptic, so you will need either 8 strength or 8 perception to pass speech checks. Okay, now for the last additional objective and the last step in the main mission. Rescue all the survivors from the storm. It's really important to follow this part of the guide step by step, as it's so easy to fail this part and be locked to tier 2 rewards. All 3 options for part 3 will leave you outside this door. On the other side there is a storm that deals heavy radiation damage to you and to the 3 survivors you need to rescue to complete the optional objective. So make sure you're geared up yourself, but the moment you load into the next instance, you need to sprint to the feeble survivor who appears first. They have about 90 seconds till they die, so be quick and ignore the trogs. Friendly fire can be used on all 3 survivors too, which can keep them alive a little bit longer, but make sure to spam the dialogue options with each so you can quickly send them to safety. You can go back to look for collars in the Fanatic Skeptic if you didn't do that already, but the team leader needs to return to Ava Rose and turn in the objectives. Once this is done, talk to Danilo and then Lennox to go home and claim the rewards. That wraps up the mission guides. This was a condensed version of Kat's web article guides, so I really recommend checking those out for all the details. I'll be following this up with a full guide on finding optional rewards like steel ingots, showing all of their spawn locations. We'll also be reviewing the new Pitt shelter. As always, we have our weekly camp builds and tutorials, so subscribing and turning on the bell icon is the best way to stay up to date and ensure you don't miss a video. If you enjoyed this particular video, why not drop a like on it as well. With that said, I am off. Thank you for watching and we'll see you in the next one.